All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1,000,000 Relationships Podcast. And this is going to be a really awesome interview. Today, I've got Dino Watt with me. Dino, welcome, man. So awesome to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. It's been a while, and
It
I'm so
has
glad we're
been
connected.
Yes, and I need to give a shout out to Joe Polish. I don't know how many years ago it was, but well, I can tell you that I joined Genius Network originally in 2008. And so somewhere along the line after that, you and I met. It's been a number of years ago. And
You know what? I actually think it was at an annual event. Garrett Gunderson was speaking. I wasn't yet a member of Genius Network, and Garrett Gunderson was speaking, and he was talking about me and what I had helped him and his wife with in their marriage. And so he invited me to come, and that was my first ever experience at a Genius Network annual event, and that's where we met. I'm actually remembering specifically meeting that, and because I never forget a shirt, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So yeah.
And we could talk about Garrett. Now that'd open up a whole nother can of worms right there. You know?
Yeah.
So, but you know what? A testament to the power of relationships right there.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
And I know you and I were talking before we hit the record button, and you are somebody like me who just places an extremely high value on it. And you made a comment to me. You said something about everything I've received. What was the comment you made to me?
Yeah, everything I've ever received in my life up to this very moment is due to a relationship that I've built, and everything I will ever receive from this moment forward will be from a relationship that I built.
Yes. And when somebody like yourself, when somebody views relationships that way, you know, a lot of amazing things happen. And you know, when we collaborate and co-create with like-minded people who we have shared values with, man, we can do so much more together than we ever could on our own. And it's just
100%.
such a powerful thing. Yeah.
I truly believe in that power, and the idea that you never know who is going to be the next relationship that's going to help you grow, and not just business, but in any way in your life. So it keeps me curious. One of my core values is to stay curious.
Yeah.
And I'm always thinking like, okay, why is that person acting that way? Or what can I do to help that person? And whether that be my family, my kids, you know, my parents, my siblings, but especially in the world, like how can I support them in that thing? What can I do? What makes them tick?
Yeah.
And people who are maybe a little more grumpy or obnoxious or doing things that are so out of character in my mind are the most fascinating to me. Right? Like I look at people who live their life a certain way going like, wow, I'm so curious about how you got there, how you came to that conclusion, or it's very interesting.
You and me are very similar. I am just this naturally curious guy. It irks my wife sometimes. Like, why do you ask so many questions? You know?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, okay. So what I'd like to do is I want to start by turning it over to you so we can set a little bit of context for this conversation, and you can share a little bit about, you know, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you're doing, the impact you're making in the world. And we'll just kind of start there and just kind of give people an idea of who is Dino and what's Dino all about.
Great. Thank you. I'll tell you, I'm terrible at that whole elevator pitch thing. I think it's the most interesting thing. So I am a entrepreneur that is a father and husband first, and finds himself being in the entrepreneur position. I'm grateful for the entrepreneur life that I have because it's allowed me to do so many things. But I'm someone who loves to connect with people and create the feeling that you can actually have more in your life, that your circumstances don't determine the outcome, right? That you can actually have a new outcome no matter what your circumstances were, are, might be in the future, and you can create your own outcome. And so I help right now primarily business owners, usually smaller business owners between team members of 10 and 60. I say if you know all of your team members' names, you're my ideal client. And
Okay.
you probably don't have an HR department, great, you're my ideal client. And what I do is I help them own their role in all aspects of their life and business. So when I talk about owning the role, I grew up a performer and an actor, and I wanted to be an actor in Hollywood, and that obviously didn't pan out. I did much better than what I would have done there, I feel. But as an actor and a performer, you put on a role, you embrace a character, if you will, to serve the situation, whether it be a play or a movie. I used to work for Disney years ago, and I give this example quite a bit, that they don't have employees that have cast members.
Yes.
So when you're hired on as Disney, I'm a cast member. So therefore, I'm a member of the cast, right? I'm playing a part. And the part I was asked to play was to make it a magical day for every single person that I came in contact with, because they were spending all of their money, time, effort, energy, coming sometimes once in a lifetime, spending their life savings to have a magical day. The interesting part was I was an alligator in the parade, the Mickey Christmas parade.
Okay.
No one could see my face. I wasn't talking to anybody specifically, but through the little tiny hole that I got to see through, which if you ever want to experience what it's like to be a character in a Disney parade, just take a sleeping bag and put it upside down over your body and dance for a quarter of a mile. And that's exactly what the experience is like, with breathing through a little tiny hole.
Wow.
But if I could go up to a little kid and give him a high five, if I could point at somebody and wave to them, all of a sudden I'm fulfilling the role of making it a magical day. And that's where I was able to excel in my part as a character or a role at Disney, a cast member. Well, I take that to people in their lives in every step. So you're the role of a father. All right. No matter what your circumstances were in your life, if you grew up with a great father or not, what would you say would be the best way to own your role when it comes to being a father? Oh, you're a business leader. All right. So as a business leader, what would you say is the best way to be a business leader? The role that you're putting on as a business. I'm not asking you to just know it or that it's a natural thing for you. A lot of people, it's not natural to be good leaders. It's not natural to be a good father. It's not. So think of or look for the people in your life that you either see the characteristics that you like as that role and adopt those and do those things. As a team member, as an employee, what does it mean to own your role in the thing that you do? Our mutual friend Garrett Gunderson says, you know, if you hire people for a task, you create enslavement. If you hire people for a role, you create freedom. And so therefore, how are you helping people own their role? So I spend my time and efforts with all of my coaching with that, helping great leaders become even better and helping great team members, or even not quite sure where they are yet and where they fit in yet as team members, as better team members and better leaders.
Yeah. Fair. I love that description. And just in what you shared, I'm just finding like, man, you know, I being a husband and a father to 7 kids, and now a grandfather to 6 grandkids currently, which there will be more grandkids coming, you know, down the road, because
Yep.
we all of our kids aren't even grown and out of the house yet, you know. And
Yeah.
so,
Wow.
and it is, yeah. I mean, man, what powerful questions to ask people to get them thinking about, what does this really look like for me? Well, how do I want to show up as whatever, a father, a husband, a leader, you know? And it's
Well, if I can add to that, Kevin, think about it this way. We also judge people based upon the way that we think they should act in their role.
sure,
Right? We go to businesses and that waiter should act a certain way. If not, I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
My parents should have acted a certain way. I remember when my dad went from dad to grandfather, and he was a way better grandfather, than he was a dad. And it pissed me off. I was like, what do you're rolling on the floor with these kids? You never did that with me. Like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Because I had a role in my head that he should have played,
Yeah.
which of course now as I've grown and know it was causing me more pain, right? Of the how he should act and my expectation of that. But we do that with everybody. I expect a business owner to act a certain way. What role are they playing? So we do it anyway. Why not do it for ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set here, which was absolutely beautiful the way you did that. I love that. We're going to switch gears a little bit. And I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. And so, have you ever been introduced or met a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Dino, I'm just really excited to hear your story, your experience around this topic of relationships.
Man, what a great question. And so many specific instances come to mind. I don't know if we have time for them all. The very first one is definitely my wife. I actually was lucky enough that I met my wife when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
And we've known each other since that whole time. We've been married. This year will be 29 years. There's nothing we don't know about each other, right? So we understand each other's weaknesses and strengths and flaws and all that. Definitely meeting her, completely different trajectory in my life. And not just at 5, but then, as teenagers. And then when we decided to get married in our early 20s, that was a huge impact because it made me really have to think of things other than myself. It really made me really have the attitude. I think I was kind of born with this attitude of just do it, just get it done. Like, quit whining about it, just get it done. And there's been some really hard times in our life, whether it be financially, business wise, or whatever, where it's just like, okay, dust yourself off and get it done. So I think she's definitely a huge impact that has, without meeting her and without her being the person she is, who, by the way, is really not built to be married to an entrepreneur. And we laugh about this all the time. She's definitely not somebody. She should have married the doctor, the lawyer, the person who had the steady income, right? And yet her overcoming that natural desire and the nature of being that has taught me tremendous amounts, because I can't complain. It's like, she could have done way better, right? She could have had a lot more security in her life, but she overcame that desire for me. So what do I have to do, right? How can I show up and do better? I mentioned to you beforehand, another probably one on a personal level are my parents, who both have never really figured out the relationship game, which is so interesting that that's the one I'm in, because I watched as even a small child and just was like, yeah, don't do that. Tell the story often about standing on the sidewalk watching my father drive away, and as he was packing up the little Honda hatchback, just going, I can tell you why mom gets mad at you. I can tell you why you get mad at mom. Like, I can fix this, but I'm 8, right? So nobody's listening to me. But they set me on the path to the desire of understanding and wanting to know more about relationships and why they work or why they fail. So sometimes I joke about how I made a lot of money from my parents' divorce, right? Because they taught me a lot of what not to do. And that's nothing. I love them and I'm grateful for them. And it's something that you never know out of that pain what's going to be created that's beautiful and amazing. And I have my marriage to my wife because of that, for sure. And then on a business level, there's definitely people. It's funny, I wasn't thinking about this before we started the recording of this, but I mentioned him once. Garrett Gunderson for sure has been somebody who completely changed the trajectory of my life. And I just got to see him about 2 weekends ago. And every time we see him, it's just I'm very grateful to him. He's super polite and kind and almost reverent to me, which I'm so grateful for. And he's told the story. I'm not telling anything out of school, but he hired me to help him with his marriage to Carrie and having a stronger relationship. He always believed in hiring coaches. And both he and is the way I met Garrett was he and Garrett White were who runs Wake Up Warrior. They were doing a podcast or a radio show before there were podcasts. There was radio shows, and they were doing a radio show called G Squared,
Yep.
and they had me on to talk about how I was bringing T. Harv Eker, who was another person who changed my life, into Utah for the first time ever. I was inviting people to come to a Millionaire Mind intensive evening, type thing.
Okay.
And they had me on the show for that. But Garrett ended up asking me a question about a business that I was running at the time called the Business of Marriage, which was basically marriage counseling, even though I'm not a counselor, marriage coaching, if you will. And although I was only supposed to be on for like a half an hour, I ended up spending the next 2 hours talking to both of them about their marriage and relationships.
Wow. Wow.
And Garrett like hired me. I was so fresh and new to it, but I just had a conviction I knew how to help people with their relationships. And I'd always been a relationship guy. I was definitely a friend zone dude in high school, right? All the girls knew me, all the girls, liked me for a friend, and I liked all of them, wanted more, but they wanted advice. And so it came very natural to me. But he, now that I'm really thinking about it, when it comes to really changing everything in my life, it was him hiring me and then saying to me afterwards, he deals with finances, right? Which is a huge problem in so many marriages. He said, Dino, I don't want to help out these people I don't want to be on the coaching call and spend half the time or more than half the time talking about their marriage. Why don't I send them to you and you help them with their marriage and I'll help them with their money and we'll be good. And I was like, sweet. And from that was another person who put me into another space. It really was the snowball that started it all.
Wow. That's really cool. That's
Yeah.
really cool. And, such another testament to the power of relationships that, you guys just, so he came to you because he needed a little bit of help in the area that you had expertise in. And I remember because I was in communication with him during that time. And I remember him and I talking about that. And I can't remember the exact words that Carrie said to him, but it was this oh shit moment that like, dang, I'm really not getting this right,
Yeah.
And he's and to the point where he was like, I need to do something about this because I don't want to continue having this kind of relationship with my wife. And so I didn't realize though that you were the guy that he hired. So that's really cool because he's told that story a lot from stage now.
Yeah, he has. He taught me another good lesson too about business because I remember sitting in the boardroom with them. He had this big old table, and Carrie was and him were on the other side, and they had me over, and he asked me. He's like, "Okay, we'd like to hire you." I had only had a few clients at that point. I had a lot of theories and a lot of ideas I was talking about, and he's like, "Hey, so how much do you charge?" And I want to say at that time it was like, I want to say like $5,000 for 12 sessions or something like that. And he didn't blink an eye and was like, okay, done. And I was like, dang it, I should have asked for more. And to his credit, we did so many sessions. We get done and he wanted to re-up. And I upped my fee. And he said, okay. And it was such a huge lesson to me of knowing your value and being confident in it. And it's really a lot.
And I've been in that boardroom that you were talking about in his previous office stuff.
Yeah.
With that door that massive door, that just swings so easily, and he's really proud of that door,
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay. Yeah. So, all right. So, first of all, before I ask the question that I want to ask you, Dino, is there anybody else that you wanted to honor or talk about, or? I don't want to cut you short.
No, I listen, I think it's such a deep question because there's so many little, I mentioned TR Becker, right? Like I saw him on stage and went, I want to command an audience the way he does. I had a mentor. First person who really taught me about business was a guy named Al Lampkin, who, for no logical reason, only the fact that he saw I was in a very depressed and frustrated state because I was in Hollywood. I produced a TV show. It was before the internet or before YouTube, and I did a pilot. I shot a pilot, the whole thing, shopped it around to Hollywood, sold it to this little company that was going to sell 5-minute or make 5-minute videos so people can watch them during their lunch break, and sold it for $13 million. And within a week, the .bomb happened in the whole world where everything was a .com and everything started going bankrupt, like pets.com and all that stuff. And we were a part of that. So I lost entire, I went depressed. This guy's like, Dino, I need somebody to come in. I was working for him part-time. He said, come in and run my company and see what you can do with it. I mean, he had no reason to do this. And because of that faith, I turned that company around within a couple of years, very quickly, very successful. And, there's little moments like that throughout my life that, and I got to say the majority of them, I'm going to preface this because I don't want to get canceled. I love women. And I think there are very, very, very powerful women out there. And there are definitely women who've taught me amazing things. But I know because I was seeking that father figure in so many different places that a lot of them were men who I was like, how can you help me? One guy, I remember one time we were at church and they were having this whole meeting around, all the adults were in a meeting about budgeting and money and finances. And I was very stressed because we were in a position where I had 3 little kids, 3 little kids. I don't have 4 kids. So 3 little kids at the moment. And, we were in that place. I don't know if everybody listening understands this place. I'm sure everybody does, where, okay, you cut out the cable bill. You don't turn on the lights as much. You're doing whatever you can to have the little bills as you possibly can have in your life. And this whole thing was about budgeting. I walk outside to the foyer. I'm a little depressed and frustrated. I'm holding one of my little babies, and this guy comes out, and he happened to be an accountant, and he was the accountant for Barbara Streisand. I lived in LA at the time. Okay. And he said, Dino, I want you to know, he could tell that I was a little frustrated. He said, Dino, I want you to know that I found something very important in my life. And I see this with all the people I work with, that you can only cut out so much of your budget until you have nothing left. But you can always make more money if you have the right mindset. And so instead of focusing on all the things you can cut out, how can you make more money and add value so you don't have to worry about that? Mm-hmm. And that was a huge mind shift for me because nobody had ever talked to me like that before about money. My parents did not teach me anything about money other than bad habits. That was a moment to me that was like, he has no idea the impact he made. So there's a lot of little moments like that throughout my life that have done that for sure. So it's a great reflective question, Kevin.
Yeah. Well, thanks for feeding that back to me. And man, what I love that example that you just shared, because where we put our intention, where we put our attention, and you're right, we could place it on how can we cut back, how can we save. But like the gentleman that you talked about, the accountant, is like, hey, you can cut back, but what if you focus on how you just make more, and how you be of service to more of the right people. Yeah, and what I can tell you in my own experience, when we serve the right people. So you mentioned some really cool people. I mean, I love Garrett Gunderson. I love Garrett White. I know both of those guys pretty well. And when we focus on serving, the cool thing about entrepreneurs is that the more our businesses grow, the bigger impact we have, the bigger problems we also come to have. And one thing is for certain, as soon as we solve one problem, it's only a matter of time till the next problem hits our desk. I mean, that's the life of an entrepreneur. We wouldn't have
Dude,
it.
you're bursting some bubbles right now, man. You're making people. I thought we got to an end. I thought there was a moment where there was no more problems. Come on,
Yeah,
man.
right, right. And the bigger our business grows, the more valuable it is to come up with the solution to those problems. And we
Yeah.
just want our goal as the entrepreneur becomes solving problems as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And
Yes.
and well, I mean, like I the thing is, like when you gave the example of Garrett Gunderson and you helped him solve the problem that him and Carrie had, trust me, that carried over to his business too.
Sure.
If
100%.
stuff isn't going well on the home front, you can be sure stuff is not going well in business either, because it
Yep.
all carries over. And I remember when I had hired Garrett, and we were getting some financial things in place. And we were getting, he's like, Kev, you need to up your life insurance and all of this, and we need to get that done. And he's like, we need to get life insurance on your wife, Lisa. And Lisa, her and I had both flown out to Garrett's, to that boardroom. We were there meeting with Garrett. And
Yep.
and I was like, Garrett, I was like, I was like, I'm the income earner. Lisa's, she's a full-time stay-at-home mom. She's working harder now than she ever did when she was out of the house, but I don't know that we necessarily need the insurance on Lisa. And he's like, Kevin, he's like, if something happened to Lisa, do you seriously think your ability to do what you do will not be impacted? And I'm like, yeah. I said, you're absolutely right. He's like, you need insurance on Lisa.
He said almost the exact same thing to me. Like, I mean, I remember, I don't know if I gave pushback to it, but that example of him saying that, I was like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and I remember turning to Shannon and being like, well, I mean, at least for a month, it's going to impact me, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
just to mess with her, a little bit.
At least for a little bit.
It is for a little bit. I think that was right after she had talked about how, wow, you're worth more dead than alive to me at that
Yeah,
time.
see, she got you right back, didn't she? But
Yeah.
yeah, and okay, so now I want to
Yeah.
ask this follow-up question, because this is where my mind always goes. Because so if you look at any of these relationships that you've talked about, so I want you to think of just one instance where you were able to have a really big impact that just really stood out for you, that like, wow, that was amazing, that would have never happened if not for your relationship with whoever, whether that was with your wife, with Garrett, with T Harv, whatever. What is coming to mind for you for something like that?
Well, with specifically the people that we talked about.
Well, I mean, ideally, because we've already set the context for it. You know what? So if you're thinking about something different, then you just need to set the
No,
context for it. So
no. I'm thinking about those. So the question is a
with,
moment where it would have happened unless that thing happened.
that's right. The impact would have never happened if not for your relationship with whoever that was.
The one that pops up, there was a moment, and we were in our last house, and we had just gotten back from doing a year-long road trip across the country. It's 2013. My wife and I took our kids and put them in an RV, and we traveled around the country for 13 months.
Wow.
And we shouldn't have been able to do it. Like, we didn't have the money to do it. I was working from the road, right? It was all literally on a prayer that we made it happen. And even though I pulled up to the house, and I remember December 31st, 2013, I remember pulling up to the house and looking at my house and having that breath, that sigh of relief that, oh my gosh, if I did that, I can do anything. Like, I had such confidence. it wasn't a few months later where my business wasn't really doing well and I wasn't really having the impact. And my wife came out of the bathroom getting ready for her day. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, kind of complaining about stuff. And she just said, listen, if you don't figure this out, I don't know if I can do this another year. And we had never, ever talked in those words or phraseology of you better figure your stuff out. Like none of that. She had always been so patient and waiting, and I'm sure that I had taken advantage of that. And that moment of realization of like, is she saying what I think she's saying? Oh, she is saying what I think she's saying. That moment was a huge shift in my brain of she's not going to be okay and she doesn't deserve and the kids don't deserve to have the Dino who doesn't really believe in himself and isn't going to get off his butt and do everything the Dino that's just surviving is not okay anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was so huge for me in the sense of it wasn't a threat. It was an awareness of stop pussying around, stop being a jerk about it. Like just do it. And there's a huge consequence. The one thing that I cared about most in the world, even over my own children, the one thing that I cared about most was threatened in that moment. Mm-hmm. And I just went, oh, shoot. And within weeks, I had more clients than I had before. I was totally doing something different in my business. I was just attacking it in a completely different way. Yeah. And that was definitely probably the big moment of she loved me enough to stop being gentle with her words, with stop. She believed in me enough to say that she wasn't willing to stand by and watch me not believe in myself enough. Yeah. Which is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And so if you look now at what came, so you're like, okay, you know what? She's right. I need to step up and do this for me, for her, mm-hmm. for our kids, for the people that I serve. And now as a result of that, I mean, because this is where it gets really cool, starting to look at this because of who you and I choose to serve. Yes, we are serving frontline entrepreneurs, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. and they are the people that we serve. But these frontline entrepreneurs that we serve, they have spouses, they have family members, they have team members, they have vendors that support their businesses, they have clients that their businesses serve. Yep. And ultimately, we are having an impact on all of those.
100%.
That one conversation with your wife, just keeping it real, going, Dino, you got to get on this, man, because yep. I expect more from you. And, yep. By the way, I've had that same exact conversation with my wife, too. So, where she told me,
can't you just love me for who I am? Can't you just let me be? Why are you putting so much pressure on me?
Yeah. Yeah. I should have known on our second date when my wife told me, she goes, I'm just going to let you know right now, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a relationship with a guy who wants to be in a relationship with the right woman. And you know what? If that ain't you, that's totally cool. Just don't waste my time and drag this thing out. Just let me know right now.
I love it. So smart. Love it.
So, but I mean, when we start looking at this is really phenomenal. And I know I was telling you before we hit the record button how much I love doing these interviews. And Dino, this is another example of why I love this conversation that we just had right here. This was powerful. This was powerful.
Yeah. And well, I'm grateful you create that space for it, right? I'm in a place right now. I'm actually revamping my podcast. I've had a podcast for the last couple of years, and where I'm rebranding it, renaming it, and I'm keeping the same channel, but changing it up a bit. And it's so interesting how even in just the last few interviews, I've noticed it's going in a direction that I really like, but I was not expecting. And it's more along these lines where you're having real conversations. Um, there's a lot of Google or actually Chat GTP strategy nowadays, right?
Yeah.
But you can't get this type of connection of understanding of people and relationships through Chat GTP. It's not going to do very well if you
No,
put that
no,
thing.
no.
But
And this,
you mentioned something at the very beginning. Sorry, cut you off there. That I think is exactly what you were just talking about, is the idea that you have no idea the continual impact. My company is called Our Ripple Effect because of the impact that you make on not just you, but on the team member, the vendors, all the stuff you're just talking about. It's just so true, and that's what's awesome about it.
yeah. Well, Dino, for anybody listening that's going, dang, Kev, I really like Dino. I love what he's all about. How can they find out more about what you guys are doing and stuff?
Yeah, DinoWattConsulting.com or just DinoWatt.com. DinoWatt.com is more my speaking site. You see
Okay.
a lot of my speaking opportunities and stuff, what I do there. And then Dino Watt Consulting is more around my philosophies and how I approach business and work with my clients. And then obviously all social medias. You want to see me dance, look at TikTok, because I actually do dance on TikTok.
I've seen you actually dance.
Yeah.
So,
I love it. I
so
love dancing.
Dino, any last thing you feel compelled to share before we call it a wrap?
Well, first of all, like I said, thank you for setting up a space energetically and emotionally for this conversation to happen. I think there's a reason why you have said 193, 192 episodes at this point, because more people need to have these conversations and then just be real and just know we're connecting with each other.
Yeah.
I believe two things very strongly when it comes to business, which is what Tony Robbins says, right? Where he says, the quality of the questions you ask yourself will determine the quality of your life.
Mhm.
And so you asking powerful, impactful questions increase the value of my life over the last half an hour, 45 minutes, and also the listener. So there's an incredible ripple effect there by the question you ask, even if same question, because obviously it impacts people differently.
Yeah.
And then number two is that piece about relationships. And, you and I have known each other for, since 2008.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, sorry, 2018, probably 15, when we first met at the Garrett thing, Genius Network. We haven't done this before, but
Yeah.
because the relationship we continued on, the connections we had, whether that be relationship to relationship, we're here in this moment.
Yeah.
And I would venture to guess that either through this, you and I, or me and someone who's listening, or you and someone who's listening, it will continue on and there'll be more to come. So I think that's very powerful.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dino, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to
Oh,
have
my
this
honor.
conversation today and just share from your heart, because the goal for the listeners has always been really simple. They're entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs as well, and the goal has just been I just want to inspire them to place an intentional focus on creating more real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their own life. And we definitely delivered on that today, thanks to you, Dino. And so I just want to thank you for the role that you played in that, and really appreciate you, man.
My honor. Thank you.